everybody, this is Holger Mueller from Constellation Research here with another SAP update with my trusted partner on my left, Martin Fischer at Cycling Fish. You can follow me at Holger Mu about talking all things SAP today. How are you, Martin?
Pretty good. And how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm struggling with my virtual screen because I have a literal mess behind me. So there's nothing evil on this side, but just pixelation happening because something on my green screen on my computer is not working right. Pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, also very good. So first day back from first part of my summer vacation. Weather is getting a bit hotter right now here in Germany. So I'm based in Stuttgart here. Today 30 degrees roundabout. So very good day to work in the home office just underneath the roof.
Well, because you have air conditioning as every German apartment has, right? So that's not a problem, right?
No,
no air conditioning in Germany, right? Well, I'm lucky enough here in San Diego. I live here in this house since 2.5 years, and I have not turned on the air conditioning yet. So pretty good from close proximity to the ocean, and thanks to the Humboldt Stream keeping us cool here in Southern California. If you're close enough to the coast, otherwise pretty hot too.
Yeah. Okay. So
how many trips have you taken, Martin? How many trips? How often have you been to the Stuttgart airport in the last 3 months?
I haven't been flying for about a year. No, last year we also. Oh. My last flight was actually to Tecket. No, that's wrong.
How many business trips have you taken? You're not flying. How many business trips? I forgot about the European thing. You take the train, the car. So how many business trips have you taken?
I had one business trip in the last 4 months, which was about 20 kilometers by car.
You could have biked that, right? So how's the biking doing?
So actually, I'm still biking with my son in the trawler. How do you call that? The small thingy.
Anhänger, yeah.
And I'm still doing my Corona morning routine runs in the vineyards. So every working day so far, I was running since beginning of April.
Good for you. Well, for me, it's mostly telecom. All right, enough about boring stuff about us, just to have the continuity, because we talked about this also in April. Interesting day today, right? SAP announced their numbers, right? So, but what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, first of all, I have to welcome all the listeners of Coffee Corner Radio. So we are live on Periscope and on YouTube right now on your channel, but will also be available on the podcast channel Coffee Corner Radio later. So welcome to all the listeners right now. What we are going to talk about today. So we had our last episode together, I think mid of April or something like that, if I remember right. And we thought maybe the speed is a bit going down of the speed of change within SAP and the enterprise software area, but it didn't. I guess 2 weeks later already, there was the departure of Jennifer Morgan, which came, at least for me, out of a sudden. I don't know how it was for you.
No, it certainly was surprising and sudden, no question about this, because typically SAP does longer-term setups than 4 or 5 months, right? And there was a lot of concern, I think, around this. But I think overall, now that we are 3 months apart from that, SAP handled it pretty well, and there's been not at least public points of saying and public noise or questions why this happened and happened. And the explanation was accelerate decision processes, and during the COVID times, good thing or bad thing. I still have to write my blog post. It's on a long backlog about the defense of the co-CEO model. It's actually very interesting. The financial markets like co-CEOs better, and I personally think it's a better decision-making process. But true, it takes longer time, and you have to make the balance between decision speed and longer time speed. I personally think there's been some other things at play, but I don't know what you hear and what you see.
Yeah, I've read some German articles about it. There were some reasons mentioned behind the curtain. There were there's this strong team in Waldorf right now, and she was maybe a bit too far away. There were rumors about the Embrace contracts with Microsoft, which are maybe not really in favor for SAP. The integration of the acquisitions was a topic which was mentioned as a reason, and so it seems like there were a lot of discussions between Christian and her, all related to other press articles I just read about that topic. But yeah, the real reason, or the official reason, is COVID and speed in decisions. I think COVID is another good excuse in this case, as we see it very often right now.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I mean, the key thing for our listeners and viewers here is when SAP clearly has changed the positioning model, right? So when they bought all the cloud companies, Ariba, SuccessFactors, and so on, and Concur, and so on, it was all about stay away from them, do not break them. We don't understand cloud, or Waldorf doesn't understand cloud really well. So they operate by themselves, let them grow as fast as possible, and we integrate them somehow. And then 3 years ago, there was the Sapphire with Bernd Leukert and Rob Ensign saying integration is important. Integration was 2 years ago, actually. And that, I think, opened some eyes, right? And then there was the mandate of the 6 sisters, as I call them. So let's get them together: Ariba, SuccessFactors, Concur, Qualtrics, Fieldglass, and I'm missing one. Not sure which one it is, but okay. Missing Ariba, SuccessFactors, Concur, Fieldglass, Qualtrics. Oh, I'm missing 6. Wow. COVID, right? Don't worry.
COVID,
It's a major acquisition.
Anymore.
Shame on both of us, but don't worry. The reader will have something to laugh at. We can't forget the 6. They were supposed to run by themselves, and then came the integration. They had to move to SAP HANA as database. They had to move to SAP Cloud Form. All good things for the suite level customers, but very hard for the roadmap. And that, I think, triggered this different, more integrated plan what they're on. And maybe Jennifer Morgan was more of last generation of letting all the flowers bloom, or letting all the SaaS startups run, right? So I think that was the inherent change, which is important for SAP customers to understand that everything will be much, much more closely integrated and aligned now.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, that's a clear response to the customers who were asking for it. At least in Germany, I heard the same from the UK and from Australia, where there were last year conferences where the message was pretty clear towards SAP: we need better integrated products. And for me, I was very worried last year about what's going on and what's coming next. I think right now things are getting better because the roadmaps are a bit clearer for that integration.
Yeah, that's the main factor which came out of this, right? So 1 year of a break, then Klein Morgan becomes CEO, and there's finally traction in the promised integration topic. But integration is a marketing term, right? Integration can mean all kinds of things, right? The original vision on the integration would be all web services, API hubs, and so on, integrating, loosely coupling, something thousands of enterprises are doing from reality because they have a number of solutions, right? Now the integration is much more close, saying same database of S4HANA, same delivery, same access management, and so on. So it's a much, much tighter integration, which we'll see coming out from SAP. The majority of it it's great. There's a roadmap, there's integration document. The majority of it coming now in the second half of 2020.
Yeah, especially the kind of harmonized data model, or this meta layer of harmonized data view, which I would call it, makes very much sense for me. And I think customers have waited for it, because just have a look on the business partner in CRM and the business suite, which are not harmonized right now, and in other system as well. And don't talk about the 6 sisters, which have different data models. So I think the expectation in the enterprise world is to have that kind of integration, which is now hopefully happening. And if you had a look at Sapphire now, where there were no real surprising announcements, at least for me, no big things. It was rather, okay, we deliver now what we promised years ago. Don't know what do you think, or what was your impression about Sapphire?
Yeah, no, which is, I think, good news, right? So, and it was the first time since a long time, I was even thinking back to the 90s, that an SAP CEO showed an integrated business flow, a value proposition, right? With the example of Porsche, which many people call tone deaf, given that people are out of job, can't afford Porsches, and so maybe not the best example. On the flip side, exciting brand, everybody can relate to, and so on, but maybe not the best timing. But the key thing to take away for customers is not an unfortunate choice of the demo company, but is integrated processes are being shown, are being mandated, are being shown as a vision. And no CEO would show it as a vision part if he looks bad a year later. Nothing of that is possible, of what was shown in the keynote the year before. So that's the big change and departure back to the integration part. Unfortunately, it went to a certain point, right? You literally hosed in the digital conference era when your registration system, the agenda system doesn't work, people can't get to the events. So that was a major faux pas on the SAP side. They all know this, fine. Not much you can do about it. Now it comes back to how well they can recycle the content afterwards.
Yes, that was a very big thing and really annoying and embarrassing for a tech company like SAP, I think. It was chaotic. I tried to follow a bit, so I didn't block the full days, but I just thought I can watch some of the sessions, and started with the keynote, which was kind of impossible. Okay, I saw it then on Periscope, but then I was already not motivated anymore to follow it. So that was, I think, a big disappointment for many who tried to follow it.
Yeah, it has such a big following from an in-person attendance, right? And the expectation was to have the same thing. So that was certainly disappointing. And the problem is, if you don't have it live, content's hard to get to, right? So it's going to be replayed. So for instance, this is the first Sapphire that I'm doing, I can remember since a long time, even as a former employee and so on, that I have not listened to the Q&A yet. Because I know it's there, right? I can always look at some point and never get to it. So it's really important that these live systems work really well. Yeah. So major announcements, the whole thing around carbon management, right, sustainability. I think it's a good message, right? But again, not the relevant one in the midst of a COVID crisis, right? I would have loved for SAP to talk more about the technology behind it, right? Because my hope is that this involves the new, that's the biggest news actually on the product side, right? It's the SAP really does big data now, right? With I think it's the SAP Cloud Data Warehouse. I always jokingly call it after the gentleman whose team is building this, Gerrit Katzenmeier, called the Gerrit Lake, right? So finally, SAP has big data capabilities, and through that, you can have a better chance to do something additional with data, like, for instance, calculating a carbon footprint, or figure out activity-based costing, or figure out which people are doing what in my enterprise, right? Get the full digital footprint. There's so many capabilities which big data and the data lake or Hadoop-style technology is open for SAP. So that's, I think, really long-term thing they corrected in their roadmap, which they weren't doing, and I'm glad that they've done this. It's very good for their customers, so good things should be coming from that.
That's right, and I was actually surprised how far they are already with the carbon footprint implementation stuff. The first time I heard about it in public was last year at the DSHE Jahreskongress, annual conference, and there it sounded more like a first idea, and it seems to be a bit more than just an idea right now.
Right. No, but it's good. The good thing for me, the other side is, this was an idea back in September, October on board level. Actually, Thomas Saueressig's idea, right? So seeing all the Friday for Future things and said that should be something interesting and so on. And it shows that when SAP wants to get something done from the top, they can move pretty fast. And it's this speed and agility that should be the showcase confidence point for customers, right? So hopefully SAP is picking up development speed, right? All this talk on the developer side is developer velocity, so they can deliver more value-added capabilities to customers.
Yeah, that's right. So we already talked about the online edition or the virtual edition of Sapphire. So I suspect your main task is usually when you're not in your home office, visiting conferences and other analyst events. So how is this year for you, and what do you think about the all virtual conferences?
I've not been to the airport since early March, right? I might have one trip coming up now in August, but I'm not sure if I guess it's driving distance, so 10 hours. So not sure what I'm going to do. No, the virtual thing is enterprises are struggling across the board with this new format, which is kind of interesting. They're delighted and excited about how many people are joining their events, right? So Microsoft had their developer conference in June, which sells out like when it goes live 20, 30 minutes afterwards, because limited to 5,000 people. And I was saying, wow, 150,000 people attended, right? So very, very interesting to see like how much better attendance, how much more reach you can have from this. So I think the traditional conference is not going to come back in the former shape as long as we're doing this, the longer this be going. And companies are realizing they're spending a lot of money for probably not so much return. The question is, of course, what does it do from the sales side? Because these are also prospect shows. We try to sign deals. And the good news is for the industry, and the bad news for the event providers is companies are not missing the numbers significantly and saying, yeah, we didn't have our user conference, we bring so many people there and they sign, right? So that's the interesting part to see. So we'll see if the conference will come back. And the longer this goes, the less optimistic I am.
Yeah, I agree. I see some pros and cons. So the pros you already mentioned, it is the reach. If you just see it from a learning perspective, it doesn't matter if or it's even better if you're sitting at home and can just join a talk there. On the other hand, the networking stuff is completely missing, which is, so if you are, as I am since a few years active in the community, you miss this opportunities to meet that people and all that between the lines conversations are just not possible anymore. That's also something I see in my daily job, where sales is also part of my daily work, where you are missing the coffee corner information.
Oh, this is why we have the virtual coffee corner. So it's great to talk to Fischer here of Coffee Corner Radio, right? About all things SAP. Yeah, so definitely massive change for people. Social connections changing dramatically. No question. Not clear how this is gonna all end up, right? So I've been playing with pixelation here. When I go over it, it kind of like disappears, but now we have a view of San Diego, but if I move back, it kind of like creeps back here. So, yeah.
I hope San Diego doesn't disappear for real.
No, it won't disappear. It's been around since a long time. It will be around for a longer time. Not like Europe, but yeah. Good. 1847 or 49, something like this, the mission was founded here. So, relatively short history.
Yeah. Okay. As all the cities in the west of the States or and Canada.
Oh, yeah. No, of course. The West was taken very late. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
by the way, it was Hybris. I was sneaking for those Hybris in the list, right? And I never gave Calidus a full number. So theoretically, there could be 7 systems, but I don't want to change the brand, so I'm sticking with 6 systems. so it's SAP's forgotten CRM strategy, right? So no wonder we don't talk about it. Right? We don't hear much about it.
Yeah. Strategy and acquisitions is actually today a very hot topic.
Disinvestment. The opposite. Disinvestment, the opposite.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Trying to sell it. So today, SAP announced that there will be an IPO of Qualtrics. So and that they will sell 49% of the shares. Well, what does that mean? I think, at least for me, I never understood why they spend so much money for Qualtrics. Even how long has it been? 2 years ago?
It was January last year.
January last year.
January last year, I think. Yeah. 8 billion for a company which now does 130 million a quarter. So pretty steep price tag, no question about that, right? So
I'm still looking for the magic behind that technology.
I mean, the vision will pay for it, right? So the O data, X data, bringing things together is super interesting, right? Because companies look at their O data, at their transactional data all the time, and then they have to figure out what's wrong. So then there's hypothesis of what could be wrong. What could be wrong? What should we be doing, right? But you want to validate this, right? And the validation is, if it's not in the digital signals, you have to create the digital signals and data from that. And the way of doing this is, there's no better solution, is surveys, right? So asking people about this, motivating them with Starbucks gift cards or whatever, or through their loyalty or competitions, right? And give you a feeling of that, right? So there's no question on that, right? And if you can automate that and have this automatically done, I think SAP is onto something, but they have to deliver it, right? And that's the question, what happens after they've done their integration homework to really differentiate the SAP products beyond, right, the now different kind of level suite, right? They're more mature. They also published adoption numbers, right? 7,400 or 600 customers live, double the amount of purchases, right? So there's some traction from that perspective for SAP as well. But I think the hybrids, I'm going to say hybrids, the Qualtrics vision, very interesting. I think the IPO is happening to get some of the money back, right? So, which was in there, right?
As well. And yeah, I think the whole story and the strategy and the potential is there, and for sure, or at least that's my perspective, is that with the acquisition, SAP or Qualtrics reached the whole SAP community and the existing customers, which I think many of them never heard about Qualtrics before. So for Qualtrics numbers, it was most probably a very good move especially for that price.
Yeah. Whoever made, I think probably the early investors into Qualtrics made a lot of money, right? But I mean, there's an entrepreneurial culture with the Ryans, right, and Xerafin, and they can now live that. And there's also the chance that some other vendors, if they build something really interesting, will be embedding Qualtrics as their X to their O, right? So that will work better if it's like a loosely partnered. I don't know why SAP would keep the 51%, right? That's just to make nobody worried at the moment right now, but I think they will disinvest more over time. Mark my words. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Yeah, that was my first impression this morning when I read the news. Yeah, definitely.
Good numbers from SAP, right? So good to see, right, that the company seems to be executing. Better numbers in Asia than in Europe and North America, where they seem to have a better handle on COVID and seem to be operating more normal. So that's good to see, and that certainly takes off the pressure from Klein as the sole CEO now to keep the investors happy, which is a crucial part of his job. And whenever the investors are happy or okay, on a happy place, they confirm guidance, now they have to deliver to that, then you have time to do the big and important thing, which for me is always on the product side, right? So, and that's what's going on, in my view.
Yeah, and the stock is doing very good. I would even say almost crazy right now in these times. But that's a completely different topic, I think, the whole stock market thing. But yeah, I can imagine that the pressure on Christian is not that big with that, results and numbers right now. So seems to be all good.
Yeah, so the pressure is big, right? There's less pressure on the financial side or things to solve there, right? I think SAP will not need layoffs this year or something like this, which always change a strategy, go to market and so on. That's all good news. That the pressure is on to deliver the future growth.
Yeah, but after the departure of Chen Morgan, there was some comments saying, okay, now we've got that male German board back. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense. I mean, it is a problem, right? I mean, the Porsche example, I don't know how they could have changed it or not, right? Not having built the keynote of Sapphire out of Germany completely and not having global feedback potentially, I don't know, might have led to a different appearance at Sapphire than would have been appropriate, right? So I'm a strong believer in diversity. I'm a strong believer in global management teams, because the world, so being global and connected, ticks differently in different parts. And that's something that Christian and the board have to pay attention to and make sure that they don't become too single location, single culture centric, right? Which is a risk.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense that they harmonize as a team. Well, very good. At least I have the feeling that Thomas, Jürgen, and Christian are very, very good team players together. But on the other hand, as a global company, that's really something which might be also a bit dangerous on a long term.
Yeah, wild agreement in the management team is rarely a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, it makes sense for that situation where they had to fix product strategies, integration topics, but most probably this should change soon again. Maybe we have a reason to talk again.
The other challenge, of course, is a massive generational change, right? We move from senior executives in their 50s moving to their 60s to senior executive barely in their early 40s, right? And it's much, much harder to find those high potential people and put them into responsible positions outside of your cultural experience, outside of your hiring part, right? Because if you look at it, this is basically Christian working with Thomas being the CIO and so on, and making it part of his move to become CEO that he takes over products. And then Thomas is expanding his role with Christian becoming CEO, right? So that's a trusted relationship there, which is there. So it's much harder to find someone who's coming from somewhere else in their late 30s, early 40s to take over a similar role because they don't know each other long enough.
Yeah, and they don't know Hasso, most probably.
Oh, well, everybody at that level has to get to know Hasso. That's built in the system, right? As long as there's the owner-operator, there's no question about that. Right? And Jürgen comes out of the Hasso corner much, much more from a longer-term perspective from the Potsdam Innovation Institute and so on, right? So
HBI. Yeah.
Well, but there, I think we have to talk about for a second, right? Is the Corona warn-up, right? So, what a fascinating situation there, right? That despite all the privacy concerns, right? I mean, much good adoption in Germany in general. Interesting to see, but I was surprised how few positives were on the app, because for 15 million people, 550 cases coming through the app, that doesn't make sense, right? And then they got major egg in their face of not having the app ask, can I run in the background, right? Because who has the app in the foreground for most of the time, right? So there's a software quality part where SAP has a thing in the face, architecture part, and quality assurance. Are people really using this? It's not just about downloads, it's about like how much does this thing do? But I mean, glad they fixed it. Better to fix it late than never. But not a successful story, at least for the moment.
Actually, our last episode was with an interview with two of the project members from SAP. So if you're interested, just go to the podcast, Coffee Corner Radio. If you're interested into that topic. Yeah, I mean, it was not running correctly, or that issue was not on all phones. So I never had that. I also installed that on an iPhone XS. So there was no issue, but with older phones, it was an issue that the update was not coming. They said they kind of tracked the contacts you had, but it didn't alert you if somebody got a positive test.
This is a shocking thing, right? All the privacy discussion in Germany, right? You build a system which is supposed to be on, you push it, and you don't. I didn't install it. I can't download it here, right? Yep. And it doesn't ask you, do you allow this application to run in the background, right? So this would have been a warning flag if I installed it and said, what? It does it automatically without asking me, without getting my consent, or it doesn't do it, right? Something is wrong here. And well, okay, lesson learned. But I mean, if I was CIO building custom projects of SAP on the mobile side, I would say, oh, so if the top-down, highly visible project does mistakes like this, then But okay, I mean, mistakes happen. It's very human. Hopefully, the important thing is we learn something from it and move on. But that doesn't look good, right? And then Jürgen Mueller does this blog post and say, oh, it's the device manufacturers. No, it's a feature in Android. I don't know for iOS. I don't follow that closely. It's a feature in Android since 3 years or something, that you have user control about background apps, which is an important thing from a privacy perspective, from battery perspective, from performance perspectives, obviously. Yeah.
No, actually, on iOS, the phone doesn't ask. It seems to be a bug, which that was the announcement. So Apple kind of admitted it. I don't know. So still weird testing.
This is why I don't like Apple in general, right? They think everything is done Cupertino and the best of the world, right? And that cannot be from no company, no matter how talented you are. You can't do this. So I prefer much more the Android approach here.
Yeah, but there the issue was even bigger, I think. One thing, if we already touched that topic, is the approach SAP developed that software. Fully open source, very transparent on GitHub, and so yeah, if you had a look on at least in my Twitter sphere, for example, and also on the press, when there was announced that SAP and Deutsche Telekom will develop that app and operate the systems afterwards, the general mood was more or less, if that is such a good idea, why those maybe slow companies, whatever, they are not famous for delivering fast, open source and all that stuff. And that's something I really like. They really showed that they can do that, and that they can manage open source project even with that high attention. They got very good feedback for code reviews from developers, independent developers who just had a look on that. There's the German so-called Chaos Computer Club, who are very data privacy and security. They really pay a lot of attention on that kind of stuff. They even didn't find stuff to complain. That was from that point. Not talking about the bug we just mentioned. From that perspective, it was a really, really good thing for SAP and for Deutsche Telekom, and a very good example. There were also discussions about the budget, but if you are not involved in that project, that's hard to comment.
Budget doesn't play a role in these projects, right? Yeah.
No, and I mean, there's behind the scenes, there's also some infrastructure, which they set up for the health authorization in Germany, and
that's the business idea, right, behind it.
Yeah, most probably. And I can imagine, if you think about German administration offices, that's a hard part to get them digitalized. So that's still. I just saw today a letter to my wife from the city of Stuttgart, where they send a letter and say, okay, you can respond via an email. So that's how we are handling that kind of stuff.
No, I think you're absolutely right. But the takeaway for SAP customers is, if SAP wants something from the top down, they can deliver something, right? It's very similar like the sustainability solution. And this is a good example where SAP is doing good stuff as a German technology company for Germany. So that's all good. It's shocking. The good thing is also they did it via open source and review and got good notes from that. But again, what kind of is an open source review good if the application fails in one of its core capabilities, right? So obviously not everything was shared, or not shared to enough people, or people who don't build applications. Because like this is one of the basic things, the top 10 checklists of your app is battery consumption, right? Because you have to be a good citizen, otherwise you get banned from the app stores. Forget Corona and COVID warning apps, right? So, and then not thinking about the implications of that, and not figuring it out also in the code review, saying you have to think about this. That questions, of course, the review process, because the whole idea of open source is that more people look at this and do something. In the meantime, you see I'm experimenting with my jacket now. The pixelation on my right here is getting gray, so it's something that likes my t-shirts. I'm not going to take the t-shirt off, so don't get your hopes up here. But it's a little less, Good. What else do we have, Martin?
Well, just one last comment on the Corona Warn app thing, which I already forgot. Great. No, one thing I wanted to add. One aspect about giving that to such big companies became clear to me when I was listening to another German podcast. Sometimes I hear also other podcasts, not only Coffee Corner Radio, where they interviewed the project manager from SAP side, and they had a very close involvement with Apple, Google, and they have a very direct connection to them. And I think if just a startup or a small independent app company would have started that project, that would not take place. They wouldn't take that serious enough. And it would slow down the whole process. I mean, if it would go to the German government, for example, they are addressing Apple again, not understanding what the actual issue is because it's too technical. So that's one thing where it makes sense to me that it's a SAP and Telecom. I'm not a big fan of big companies, actually, so at least not for me as an employee. But in this thing, it makes very much sense for me. Also, they are working closely together with the German Fraunhofer Institute, which do the research in the Bluetooth low energy area, because Bluetooth low energy is of course not made for distance measuring. So there were also a lot of tests happening in the background to get that stuff running.
Yeah. But again, sorry if I'm the negative guy here, right? It's great that SAP can get the attention of Google and Apple, right? And that nobody who was their partner advisor on Apple and Google side said, hey, background use. That doesn't look good, whoever was involved from Apple and Google side either, right? So yeah, it's a great example that even if big companies are involved and money is not important, it still doesn't mean that you get a functionally working application, right? And
yeah.
I don't even want to go to how many people got COVID with the app on there who could have been warned, who have not been warned, right? So, which, by the way, could be said out of the 15 million downloads, so and so many were affected, which is very unfortunate, not transparent, that SAP, Telecom, whoever does this has not done yet, right? So, and unfortunately, like lack of transparency never goes to positive thoughts, right? So, because if it is what it is anyway, right? Give SAP good numbers on the recent security breaches to be transparent about this, right? And share that, right? So you don't want to hear it from companies being hacked because of security breaches. You want to hear it from your vendor and that they have a strategy and a plan. They might hopefully, ideally, have fixed it already. That's the best way of doing it. But yeah, sorry, I'm very disappointed about the COVID app from the technologist, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's a bad sign that it took so long till they found it out. So
this should have happened. Really, the first thing. There's so many. Gets me started. Right, usage analytics. Right, you have a new app. You just don't want to look at downloads. You want to see usage. Right, what does it do, and what's the value of the app? And the COVID value app is how many COVID cases does it do. Right, you don't have to invade the privacy. You just want to see how many times is it fired, and does it somehow correlate to my 15 million out of 80 million Germans or smartphone users, right? And obviously, I was wondering, okay, maybe they're not showing us the full numbers, but okay, fine. Enough COVID warn-up. I'm not positive on the topic.
Yeah, I'm half. So
no,
I think
in principle, a very good thing, but I would not have expected the players involved. And you reminded me of the open source review and the privacy guys, and was Chaos Computer Club, legendary German data privacy and so on. All reviewed it. The partners were in there, the platforms were in there. They waited for them to do something. We still don't know what they had done for them, right? And then something, which is not like the UI was bad or the download wasn't there. No, the thing does not work on a certain number of phones, and that is really bad. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's no way for you as user to tell, right? So for whatever apps you install them and you say, hey, this thing doesn't work, throw it away. Why waste my memory, right? Here you have a high hope of something working, and does so it's. Yeah, don't get me started. If there would be competition, it would be heyday, the best day for the competition on this thing, and people would throw it off, right? Which comes back to the point that competition is a good thing, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good. What else do we have?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered most of the topics I was
Well,
thinking
looking
about.
ahead, right? So what's happened? I mean, I think it's great that SAP confirmed their guidance for the year. I think that's a sign of confidence. The
Yeah,
challenge really is, can companies continue implementations, right? You're much closer to that in this remote working thing, right? I've seen large implementations being stopped because there's just this conference room model, right? You pull the people out of their function for a week or for the whole project, and they sit in this conference room with the consultants, so they're Monday to Thursday. That model doesn't work. And I've not seen the complete digital adoption of that. And that must have an impact on all enterprise application vendors, right? And then we talked about the sales part, right? People meeting in person, the wine and dine. I can't go to the soccer match to be wine and dine, to the golf outing, to the Formula One race, and so on. Does it really play a role, right? So that's going to be the interesting thing to watch. And this will determine, we talked about digital events, this will determine where the promotion dollar spending is going to go going forward, right? Because maybe I'm going to get more if I pay people or invite people to a value-added podcast, an example, where they learn the insights independently than going every 5 years when I sign something to an SAP-sponsored tennis tournament. What's your thoughts, Martin?
Yeah, I agree on that point. So definitely, I also think the whole economy is still a very big question mark for me. So some companies are already behind the shock because their stores had to close. We receive they will have to close again, depending on the country. Germany is doing, not too bad, but numbers
Pretty
were
well for now. Pretty well for now.
pretty well for now, but the numbers are getting up again. In Spain, it's rather critical, so we will see if companies have to close their stores and shops again. I think a second lockdown will most probably not get that hard as it used to be, because we know more about the virus now and measures you can maybe take. But on the other hand, especially companies who are living from long-term investment deals like ERP vendors like SAP might get the impact rather later, because the budget planning for the upcoming years will completely change. Right. And that combined with the S4 or the business suite announcement that the maintenance will be that it will be longer maintained, might lead to the fact that some S4 implementations will be postponed, and most probably many companies will do that.
I totally forgot to play with the video editing capabilities here, so I have to go a little overboard right now. No, but you're absolutely right. So, and then what companies, vendors have to be aware of, that there's basically three categories of companies, right? So there's the ones who are super busy. They have no time to implement ERP, like say healthcare, all the essential business. Then there's this group which I call the stutterers, the on and off ones, right? And the on and off is not like all the company on, all the company off, right? But certain locations are on, off, like retail, certain manufacturing, and so on. And then there are ones on the sidelines, right? Think airlines, travel, hospitality, and so on, retail. And those don't have the money, don't even know how the business is going to be. So this is not a good climate to implement business applications, right? Across all of these, right? The first one is too busy. The other one is kind of like busy. So I have a lot of hope on the stutterer segment that people have the discipline, fortitude to say, no matter what, we have to upgrade ERP. And the ones on the sidelines, they're not touching it, right? They might be figuring out, oh, we reinvent ourselves as a totally different company, not an airline anymore, whatever. But then they need a new and different ERP once they made that decision, right? And that decision hasn't happened yet. So it's a very challenging environment from a macro perspective. So we'll see how the software industry will come out of it.
Yeah, and I think the software companies who are offering collaboration software are a bit in a favor right now.
Yeah, because we all need them, right? And it's good to see that there's finally competition on this, right? So I'm waiting to see Microsoft's new staggered, I call it like it's the view like you have in universities, which makes it more natural than everybody their square inch, right? So we'll see how that goes, right? So it's good to see the competition, right? Competition, I think, is the key thing to make things better.
Yeah, but that might become a bit of an issue for SAP because they were never good in collaboration software right now. So
but it's time for them to partner. Yeah? So the good thing is there's enough open APIs, right? The Teams integration is there, the Slack partnership is there. But the pressure is now on those companies and the people who integrate to really make business work on that, right? And we might also see acquisitions of big application vendors into that space, right? So we'll see if they want to cede their UX to them or not, right? To conversational user interfaces, which is very powerful to a certain point. But the question is, can you really run like that? And we'll have to see. So,
yeah, fully agree. So we are running out of time, actually. Again, as usual.
We always run out of time. always good to talk to you, Martin. Always good to get being here in Southern California, get the European perspective from you, and also an implementation perspective. Always good to be grounded as an industry analyst. So I always love to be a coffee corner, and it's good that we have a visual for output here too. So where do I find the podcast? Where do I find the podcast?
You find it in all the podcast stores. So Apple Podcast and Anchor, for example, just search for Coffee Corner Radio Podcast. And yeah, maybe I can post a link below your YouTube video. Then everybody can find it if you're interested in.
So search for Coffee Corner Radio, right?
Yeah, Coffee Corner Radio. Right.
Cool.
Okay. Right, well, it was a pleasure again to have you.
Same here. Always a pleasure. Stay healthy. Keep biking. Keep running.
Yeah.
And we'll speak soon again. Latest when the next SAP earnings are there. Okay?
Yeah. We will see. Take care.
Martin. Good to see you. Thanks. Bye-bye.